Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is episode number 12 on the subject, Where is the Hope of the World? Now, I would like to read again this reading in 1888 and says, "Someone told me the other day about another translation. Speaking of that, I do not know whether it is the revised version or some other, that reads, the post-prophet that wrote miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that had received the image." Elder D.T. Bordeaux, so reads the Prince. The same thought is in this, that shows then that the miracles, the deceiving miracles that are wrought, are done to deceive them that had the mark of the beast. But do men receive the mark of the beast before the image is made? Under the message and the responsibility which the message brings, are men held responsible for receiving the mark of the beast and worshiping the beast before the image comes on and undertake to compel them to do it? No, because we found in our lessons here that until the image was made, there was a way of escape from the worship of the beast. The way was open for a man to refuse, but after the image is made, there is no way open for a man to refuse to worship the beast, because there is no place on the earth where the power comes. There is no escape anymore. And then it is that man became responsible for worshiping either the beast or his image. There is no other way of escape. The only way is to turn to God. Then the time comes that the decision is clear-cut and must be made between God and the powers of the earth alone. Now, first of all, since it was taken on Revelation 19, verse 20, let us read the Bible. Revelation 19, verse 20, it says, "And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone." But the thought that I would like to emphasize, as explained by the Spirit of prophecy, that the only people that will be deceived by the miracles performed by the false prophet are those people who already received the mark of the beast, and to them who already worship his image. It says, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast. It is an erroneous idea that the miracles performed by the false prophet had been performed in order that people will receive the mark and worship the image, because the Bible does not say that. But rather, the Bible already declared that the people that will be deceived are those people that had received the mark of the beast. They already received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. Or in other words, in this verse, we can immediately discern that the worshiping of the beast and worshiping the image precedes the event when the false prophet will perform the miracles. Now, I would like to read again the statement in 1888 that God will not warn the people if there is no peace that had been in existence. So let us read the statement here. "By these plain testimonies, we establish the fact that the beast will be destroyed at the second advent. Therefore, we ask, what danger will there be that men will worship the beast at a time when there will be none for them to worship?" Or in other words, to elaborate more, what danger will there be then that men will worship the beast at a time when such system are not yet in existence? Because beast represents system, according to our study in 2SR page 86. And it says, God will never send an angel to warn men against the worship of the beast when the beast does not exist, or when that system does not exist. Now, going back again to the Bible, in Revelation 13, on verse 12, And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Now, to repeat again, such occurrence by which he will exercise all the power of the first beast to cause the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, it is after the deadly wound was healed. Let's study now closely, brothers and sisters, this very important event. Remember, that is the focal point of the message of the third angel. According to our reading, we read it several times, brothers and sisters. And to familiarize, let us read again. In the Great Controversy 449, it says, the most fearful threatening ever addressed to mortals is contained in the third angel's message. That must be a terrible sin which calls down the wrath of God unmingled with mercy. Men are not to be left in darkness concerning this important matter. The warning against this sin is to be given to the world before the visitation of God's judgments, that all may know why they are to be inflicted and have opportunity to escape them. Prophecy declares that the first angel would make his announcement to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. The warning of the third angel, which forms a part of the same threefold message, is to be no less widespread. It is represented in the prophecy as being proclaimed with a loud voice by an angel flying in the midst of heaven, and it will command the attention of the world. The Great Controversy, page 449. Now, I would like to repeat again, brothers and sisters, that according to the shepherd's rod, the third angel's message is applied in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead only indirectly. John Conference Special, page 39 and page 40. The direct application must be in the judgment that pertains to the living. Now, for sure, the reason that it is indirectly applied in the judgment that pertains to the dead, brothers and sisters, it's so because, according to our reading, in reality, in that period of time, the beast is not yet in existence, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read the Bible in Revelation, in the book of Revelation, in chapter 15 and also chapter 16. Now, in chapter 16, I would like to read this statement. It says, verse 1 and verse 2, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image. Now, for sure, the people mentioned here, they are the wicked, brothers and sisters. Now, if the existence of the beast or the fulfillment of Revelation 13 verse 12 was already fulfilled in the days of Sister White or in the days of B.T. Hotep, then the possibility that there are already people that worship the beast and worship the image, but they were already lying unconscious in their graves at this present time. And there will no more possibility, brothers and sisters, that they will be punished with this plague, the very first plague mentioned here, by which this first plague, according to the Bible, will be unto them which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image. Revelation 16 verses 1 and verse 2. Now, secondly, I would like to re-emphasize again, brothers and sisters, that according to the great controversy, that the perfect fulfillment of Revelation 14 verse 8 is still future in the days of Sister White. And the third angel, brothers and sisters, had been sounded, the warning of the third angel, after the pronouncement of the fall of Babylon. Let us read again the Bible. In Revelation 14 verse 9, and it says, and the third angel followed them. So the third angel followed the first and the second angel. Now, going back again to the statement in the shepherd's rod, to familiarize, here in 1 SR 217, it says, in 1844, when the announcement was made of the fall of modern Babylon, by the preaching of the second angel's message of Revelation 14:8, the wound would have been healed, for Babylon had fallen, and would have brought about the fulfillment of, and all the world wandered after the beast. To repeat again, the statement is plainly telling that supposed to be in 1844, when the announcement was made of the fall of modern Babylon, the wound would have been healed at that time, for Babylon had fallen. What does it mean, the statement, for Babylon had fallen? Because the statement, for Babylon had fallen, that is the reason why the wound will be healed. because Babylon had fallen. And when the wound would have been healed, then the fulfillment of that predicted event that all the world wondered after the beast will follow, according to this reading in 1 SR 217, as stated in the Bible in Revelation 13, verse 3. And to repeat again, brothers and sisters, the Great Controversy 383, it says, the message of Revelation 14 announcing the fall of Babylon must apply to the religious bodies which were once pure and have become corrupt. Or in other words, the pronouncement of Babylon had fallen, since it is applied to the religious bodies which once pure and have become corrupt, is the same with the statement in Old Symbolic Code. Reading again, in 1 Symbolic Code, number 4, on page 8, it says, in fact, it would have been illogical if all the 7 churches, candlesticks, Revelation 1 verse 20, were not represented by a symbol of the same likeness as that of the other 6 churches, Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, and Philadelphia, for they, the early Christian church and Protestant churches, too, were once God's chosen churches as the Laodicean is now. The statement were once God's chosen churches, indicating that when they became a part of the leopard-like beast, brothers and sisters, God rejected them. According to 1 SR page 54, the statement was, it says, if the Protestant churches have fallen and are termed Babylon, when does the Protestant churches had fallen and they became Babylon? Remember, the Lutheran church was illustrated in 2TG number 39. Let me read to you the statement here. On page 10, it says, now since this Jerusalem stands for the church, while among the Gentiles, and since God commands His own servant, the prophet, to besiege it, to protest against it, and to take it, it is therefore obvious that the church, the Jerusalem here portrayed, is shown as having been drawn away from God, and that God is endeavoring to rescue her, to effect a reformation in her midst. For such cause, therefore, is Ezekiel seeds. Finally, since the Christian church, Jerusalem, away from its original geographical location, was for the first time in history so attacked or besieged by Martin Luther, by the Protestant Reformation, the fulfillment of this prophecy obviously commences with Luther. So what church, brothers and sisters, that had been attacked by Martin Luther? We know that that is the Catholic Church. But that Catholic Church, according to the Old Symbolic Code, that is the Ephesus. 1 Symbolic Code, number 3, page 5, it says, notwithstanding the example which God made of the Jewish leaders, the successors to the apostles, and the successor to Moses, by adopting worldly customs and rejecting Luther's message, it says, they also betrayed their sacred trust. Hence, the case of the kingdom of heaven were taken away from the early Christian church, Catholic later. Or in other words, that early Christian church, the Ephesus, became Catholics later. Brothers and sisters, it was conquered by the Roman Catholic Church. And then God raised up Martin Luther, brothers and sisters. But what happened? What happened, brothers and sisters, according to 2SR? Let us read again the statement. The early Christian church, 103 in 2SR, the early Christian church in like manner was dragged into the dark ages as soon as the apostles passed away. Satan marshaled his agents, men of renown, into the church. The already blinded leaders laid their hands on men, not from the viewpoint of consecration, but from distinction, and thus made them shepherds of the flock. In the darkest hour of the Christian church, God, by the hand of Luther, called the attention of the multitude to the terrible deception. But few were ready to listen to the humble monk. One would imagine that the most intellectual would have been the first to see the light in the plain that set the Lord. Luther, with a great struggle and at the rest of his life, founded the Lutheran denomination. But as he passed away, the movement in like manner was corrupted and hardened against new light on the Word of God. So the same, brothers and sisters, according to the voice of inspiration, how the enemy had been defeated, brothers and sisters. The enemy defeated the church, the movement that had been raised by God. When? After the heavenly called founder died. And that is why, to repeat again, here in 1 SR page 220, it says, but as the shrewd enemy succeeded to pull down the first, he proceeded to use the same method to the last. It is pointing to the 7 candlesticks or to the 7 churches. the same method, brothers and sisters. Now, let us go back again. Revelation 14 verse 8 must be directly applied to the fulfillment in the period of the leopard-like beast in the judgment that pertains to the living rather than to the dead. What period of time? When the wound is healed. And we repeated it several times, brothers and sisters, that the wound that was healed in 1929, no, it is not the leopard-like beast, but rather the nondescript beast, the little horned head on the nondescript beast. And to repeat it again and again, according to Answerer number 3, page 45, the blow delivered by Luther affected only half of the ecclesiastical. What ecclesiastical? The Catholicism. What is Catholicism? The Monosectarian System. Let us read again. Statement here in 2SR page 114. It says, the nondescript beast has only one horned head, a symbol of a monosectarian system by alliance of civil power with religious creed. But the scarlet-colored beast has 7 heads, which denote a multi-sectarian combination. And since the shepherd's rod plainly told us in 2SR 113, it says, I would like to read the statement. He has 10 horns, the scarlet-colored beast, and 7 heads, the same as the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13:1, verse 1 to 3. The only difference between the heads of the two beasts is the deadly one on the leopard-like, and his wound was healed. It is evident that the scarlet-colored is a continuation of the leopard-like, says John, and his deadly wound was healed. Thus, the scarlet-colored beast has 7 unharmed heads. The 7 heads represent Christendom as they do on the leopard-like beast, but it is in the symbol of the scarlet color that they are called Babylon. There are a lot of subjects need to consider in this reading, but I will only select those portions that connect to our subject, Revelation 14 verse 8. Now, the voice of inspiration says, brothers and sisters, that the 7 heads of the leopard-like and the 7 heads of the scarlet-colored beast is the same. The only difference is that on the scarlet-colored beast, the 7 is unharmed, whereas on the leopard-like, only 6 that is uninjured. One of the head, it was wounded. Now remember, the scarlet-colored beast is a continuation of the leopard-like. Now, brothers and sisters, we need to have a definite understanding why is it that one of the head of the leopard-like had been wounded, whereas the 7 heads of the scarlet-colored, it is unharmed. I would like to repeat again, my dear brothers and sisters, that the beast revelation cometh from God. And the beast revelation is the chosen medium of God, according to 2SR page 10, to completely uncover the traps of the devil, or in other words, to expose the scheme of the devil. The chosen medium used by God is through the symbolization of the beast. On the side of Satan, for sure, he tried to the utmost of his ability that if possible, his deception cannot be detected. It must be hidden. And that's why the statement plainly telling us, it says that in 105 in 2SR, Satan knows how to deceive so that it cannot be easily detected. Yes, you will have a hard time to detect the deception of Satan unless you will utilize the chosen medium by God, so that the deception of Satan, although it is hard to detect, it will be completely uncovered, the traps of the devil. Because I remember the statement given by the shepherd's rod, symbols do not lie. It says here, brothers and sisters, I would like to read a statement in 1SR 124. It says, the picture tells the story. Symbols do not lie. 1SR 124. It says, the picture tells the story. Symbols do not lie. And in track number 12, it says here, the world's history, track number 12 on page 6. It says, the world's history in prophecy is recorded first in literal terms, second in parabolical terms, third in typical terms, and fourth in pictorial terms. And the picture tells the story, according to 1SR 124. And I love so much to read this statement in track number 12 on page 57. Thus, the more sure word of prophecy, which never fails to tell the truth. You see, Thus, the more sure word of prophecy which never fails to tell the truth. Again, 2SR 288, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot. Thus, making the wise and the simple, it says here, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot, thus making it possible for both learned and unlearned to immediately distinguish the difference between truth and error. Although in 2SR, on page, I would like to read that statement on page 90, it says, in view of this great confusion, there is apparent difficulty to immediately determine who is right and who is wrong. I would like to read again, 2SR page 90. In view of this great confusion, there is apparent difficulty to immediately determine who is right and who is wrong, if you will not employ the chosen medium of God, which is the symbolical prophecy, the parabolical prophecy, the typological prophecy. You will have a hard time to distinguish who is right and who is wrong. But it is guaranteed by the shepherd's rod, saying, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot, thus making it possible for both learned and unlearned to immediately distinguish the difference between truth and error. Now let us go back again, brothers and sisters. Why is it that the shepherd's rod says in answerer number 3, page 45, that the blow that delivered by Martin Luther affected only half of the ecclesiastical? And for sure, the ecclesiastical mentioned there is the Catholics. You can read that in many passages in the shepherd's rod. Now for example, here in 2SR, on page 87, it says, the wounded head, 2SR page 87, the wounded head represents papacy, wounded by Martin Luther, which was originally symbolized by the horn head of the nondescript beast, showing only the papal power and the authority. What does it mean by the term originally? No, that is not the particular object in view. For example, I would like to read to you track number 14 on page 6. All of these counterparts then are but another scriptural intimation and confirmation of the age-old truth that history repeats itself and on a much broader scale than in the original. So the term original is applied to the type, and that is not the true object. Because if the true object is during the dark ages, think it thoroughly. Why is it that God decreed that the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation will never be understood, not until the time of the end? Daniel 12:4, and explained in 2TG number 7, page 3, that the understanding of the book was not given to them prior to the time of the end. 2SR 111, the book of Daniel was not given to the people in the past, but in the last days. And in 3 Symbolic Code, 8 to 10, page 8, it says, the time of the end, more specific terms, began in the year 1844. If the particular object in view is during the dark ages, then they have not been benefited and profited by the book because they have no understanding. For sure, Martin Luther delivered a deadly blow to the papacy, but he of himself, he did not understand that it is only the fulfillment of what had been predicted in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, pointing to the type, brothers and sisters. And that is why here in 1SR page 226, it says, I would like to read, the types themselves are not the true object, no more than a photograph is, but it is a representation which pictures an unmistakable evidence, the object in view. The object in view, brothers and sisters, is the 144,000 living saints. And the mere fact that here in 1SR 214, it says, I would like to read, the intention of the complete satanic scheme is to deceive the whole world. The statement made by Christ is true, that he, Satan, will try to deceive even the very elect, the 144,000, if it were possible. So here we can easily discern that the complete satanic scheme that been employed by Satan, the particular object is to deceive the 144,000 living saints. And that is the reason, brothers and sisters, that the book of Revelation will be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. 2TG 12:30. Because the complete satanic scheme had been employed by Satan, brothers and sisters, to defeat the 144,000. Why is it that he tried to defeat the 144,000, the 11th hour servants? It is because he already defeated all other movements. that if he could be able to defeat the 144,000 living saints, the 11th hour movement, then Jesus Christ is completely defeated by the devil. Where is the hope of the world? That is very plain, right? In answerer number 1, page 67 and page 68. Or in other words, what I'm trying to explain is that if God will not rebuild completely the book of Revelation in the judgment that pertains to the living, then brothers and sisters, there is no possibility that the 144,000 could be able to overcome the beast and his image. The statement given in the Bible in Revelation chapter 15 on verse 2, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. When was that? If you will retract number 15, let me read to you, brothers and sisters. This is the statement given by the voice of inspiration. Page 19 and page 20. It says, brothers and sisters, Revelation 15 verse 2, beginning from page 18. Although the proceedings of the first two sessions are somewhat different, they are all in other respects similar. The third, however, is entirely unlike the first two. The differences are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs, there is at the throne a sea of glass like unto crystal. Revelation 4 verse 6. And no one stands on it, but after the half-hour silence passes away, the scene changes. The sea of glass is mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Revelation 15 verse 2. In other words, at the first judicial sitting, there is no one standing on the sea of glass, and the sea itself is like unto a crystal, while at the second sitting, the sea appears like unto a fiery stream, and the saints stands on it. You see, brothers and sisters, that is in the second sitting. And it says here in page 19, that the dead are judged in the first session, and the living in the second, is seen from the symbolization itself. As Upper pointed out, at the first sitting, no one stand on the sea of glass, and the sea itself is as clear as crystal, but at the second sitting, the saint stands on the sea, and it is mingled with fire, symbol of life. In the other statement here in 2SR, let me read to you. Here the shepherd's rod is plainly telling. In 2SR page 199, it says here, in the judgment, it is granted to the saints that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, to stand on the sea of glass, life eternal. Or in other words, immortality was granted. Would you think, brothers and sisters, that statement in Revelation 15 verse 2 is not pointing to the demon worship? I do fully believe that the statement in TM 445, those who overcome the world, the flesh, and the devil will be the favored ones who shall receive the seal of the living God in their foreheads. To overcome the beast, to overcome the image, to overcome the mark, to overcome the number of his name, brothers and sisters, is to overcome the devil. Because all these things are the deception of the devil. Complete satanic scheme to deceive the very elect, the 144,000. Now, let us go back again, my dear brothers and sisters. B.T. Hotep made it so plain that those people, brothers and sisters, according to 2SR page 111, I would like to read again. It says, we believe that there must be more complete symbolical information for this present generation than for any previous one. Thus, it is very inconsistent and unreasonable of those who have applied the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13 and the scarlet-colored of Revelation 17 in addition to the nondescript beast of Daniel 7 as symbols of Rome. Why so many symbols of Rome and none of the period for which the books were written? Furthermore, there are no facts to support such claims. The greatest rebuke, it is the greatest rebuke to such assertion is that they derive the same lesson from one beast as they do from the other. If there is no special lesson in each of them, why are they given? We need to learn special lesson in each beast. What is a special lesson that we need to learn on the nondescript beast? on the leopard-like beast, and on the scarlet-colored beast. And that is why the Shepherd's Rod says in 2SR page 194, it says, unless the meaning of every symbol is fittingly explained so that it cannot be contradicted and a present truth lesson with special significance derived, the interpretation cannot be dependable and there can be no truth in it. God does not make vain repetitions, neither would he waste the time of his servants to write them. Therefore, every little symbol has its meaning and reveals a great truth. 2SR page 194. Now ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. To repeat again, in track number 15, page 78, it says, I love so much this statement. From the aforementioned examples, we already see that the time has come for all faithful Bible students after saving truth, to realize that inspiration never does anything vain or careless. Its work is ever accurately constructed, always dependable at face value, and explicit beyond improvement. Now, if you fully believe that the Shepherd's Rod publications were written by inspiration, then nothing vain or careless, or its work is ever accurately constructed, always dependable at face value, and explicit beyond improvement. Therefore, the statement in answerer number 3, page 45, saying that the blow affected only half of the ecclesiastical. And we already read in 2SR page 87 that the one that had been wounded by Martin Luther, it is the papacy. And it says that that wounded head on the leopard-like beast is originally applied to the little horn head. And the term original, meaning that is the shadow, that is the type, it is not the particular object in view. And the reason why the Shepherd's Rod is plainly telling us, brothers and sisters, that only half of the ecclesiastical that have been wounded by Martin Luther, plainly telling us that God is trying to inform us that the other half will be introduced again by the devil, and God used the symbolization of the leopard-like beast, that wherever this, brothers and sisters, system, the monosectarian system, will be introduced again, and when it will be wounded, then that is the word represented by the beast, which is the leopard-like beast. And it is undeniable fact that that system was introduced in 1888, the monosectarian system, the Catholicism, according to the historical event recorded in the testimony of Alonzo Jones. And it was wounded to death. And it is perfectly corroborating to the statement in track number 8, page 59, that the message to wound the leopard-like beast is the 11th hour message. And in 2SR 230 and 231, it says, what is the 11th hour message? The 11th hour message is none other than the message of Revelation 18. And historically, Sister White made it so plain that the message of that angel, if the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a body received the message of Alonzo Jones and Wagoner, it is the glimmering of that message, but it was muffled. But the fact is, on that very year, the 11th hour message arrived and wounded the leopard-like beast. What had been wounded? The Catholicism. Half of that Catholicism was wounded in the United States of America. Half of that Catholicism had been wounded in Europe by Martin Luther. Now, think it thoroughly. Why is it that the 6 heads are uninjured? Now, I do fully believe that Satan is experimenting, brothers and sisters. And I would like to go back again to the historical event in the days of Daniel, because the Shepherd's Rod quoted Daniel chapter 3 in track number 12. Now, let me read to you track number 12, page 28. I would like to read. It says, track number 12, page 28. A full realization of the glorious reward that awaits mankind will even now compel men to shout for joy. And a like realization of the dreadful penalty that awaits all who fail to make God their refuge will cause them even now to weep and gnash their teeth. That all might realistically see these alternative prospects and be impelled thereby to repentance, the Lord has been at supreme pains not only to record a graphic description of the evil which through the instrumentality of the beast, Satan has determined upon the whole world, but also aforehand to make of a similar evil a perfect type of the image of the beast. The type was struck when Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold. And the quotation was Daniel chapter 3 verses 1 to 6. Now let us go to the historical event so that we could be able to understand, brothers and sisters, this antitypical fulfillment. Now let us read 2SR. Here in 2SR on page 56, let us read the statement. Attempts to establish ecclesiastical governments. The question may arise, what hindered Satan from establishing an ecclesiastical monarchy before the closing period of the Old Testament? So the shepherd's rod is plainly telling that it is Satan in the medium of the king, King Nebuchadnezzar. And it says, the only answer that can be given is, the Jewish nation permitted him to becloud their eyes. They were told not to make a confederacy with the world, but unmindful of the command, they made a league with the Romans, and that is what helped Satan to accomplish his scheme. And there's a puzzle in the answer given, because the question is, what hindered Satan? But the answer given is, the Jewish nation helped Satan to accomplish his scheme. When was that? Is it in the days of King Nebuchadnezzar that the Jewish nation helped Satan to accomplish his scheme? No. Because in the quotation given here, Daniel chapter 3, let us read. It says, that these men came forth unhurt. It is wonderful what God accomplished with but 3 slaves against a world empire, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 men with faith in God broke the satanic contrivance, abolished the establishment of an ecclesiastical government, and brought the king's decree to naught. Therefore, we learn that according to the historical event, King Nebuchadnezzar sent Daniel into a far place because Satan thought that the hindrance is Daniel, but he was mistaken. There were 3 Hebrews there, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, in the Medo-Persian Empire, brothers and sisters, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were already dead, then Satan thought, oh, the hindrance were already dead. Then he began to introduce again. It says, Satan worked out a similar plot in the Medo-Persian government with plans that were carried out by intrigue, taking the king unawares. Though Daniel was cast into the lion's den, he too came out unharmed, but his enemies perished, as did those who threw the 3 Hebrews into the fiery furnace. The Satan's power was broken in both of these ancient empires. But what happened in the closing of the Old Testament, brothers and sisters? That is the time after Malachi died. When was the fulfillment of that predicted event written by Daniel, that when the transgressors will come to the full, then the king of first countenance will be established? According to the voice of inspiration, that was in 67 BC. And here it says here, and at that time, there was no more living prophet in the land of ancient Israel. Now, let us read a statement given by the voice of inspiration, brothers and sisters. So, let us read here. It says, 2SR page 126 and 127. And in the latter time of their kingdom, the 4 Grecian divisions, a king of first countenance, shall stand up. This scripture is applicable to the Roman monarchy, for this king must stand at the end of the reign of the kings of Grecia. The Ptolemy was the last of the 4 Grecian divisions to fall under the ascendancy of Rome, with the defeat of Antony and the death of Cleopatra about 27 BC. The noted dynasty of the Ptolemies came to its end, and Egypt became a province of the Roman state. He was to stand up when the transgressor are come to the full. The Grecian have never been anything but transgressor. Therefore, the reference can be applied only to the Jewish nation, at which time the once favored people of God would have exceeded any previous record of both moral and spiritual corruption. The Jewish nation reached that condition at the time of the ascendancy of Rome and the first advent of Christ. Therefore, this king of first countenance is the Roman monarchy. After the transgressor, the Jewish nation had come to their full apostasy. Now, think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. Ponder deeply the importance of the prophet in the midst of God's people. Although the Jewish nation were already in apostasy, brothers and sisters, even at the time when there were still prophets among them. But the absolute fact is that the prophets had been able to check up such tide of apostasy that it did not reach to the full apostasy. But when Malachi died, they reached that condition, full apostasy. Think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. And that's why the Shepherd's Rod says in 2TG that the spirit of prophecy is in absolute necessity in all generations. It says here in 2TG 24, let me read to you the statement given by the voice of inspiration. 2TG 24, page 20 and 21, without vision, you see, the people perish, and also without an interpreter, and without faith, they likewise perish. And this is why the spirit of prophecy is in absolute necessity to the people of God in all generations, without any exemption, in all generations. 2TG 24, page 20 and page 21. Therefore, that statement or that prediction of Daniel in chapter 8 from verse 20 to 23, that the king of the first countenance, brothers and sisters, will stand up. Where to stand up? In the Holy Land. It's so because that transgressor come to the full. If the transgressor did not come to the full, there is no possibility that this king of first countenance will be established. Such monarchical government. And we know that is in the time of Augustus. And the description, brothers and sisters, in such historical event, when Augustus had been established, let me read to you. This is the statement given by the voice of inspiration. It says here, the empire, the mass of hypocrisy, which Octavius, and this is Augustus Caesar, had assumed at the age of 19, and which he never afterward laid aside, was now at the age of 34, made to tell to the utmost and firmly establishing himself in the place of supreme power which he had attained, having before him the important lesson of the faith of Caesar in the same position, when the Senate bestowed upon him the flatteries, the titles, and the dignities which it had before bestowed upon Caesar, he pretended to throw them all back upon the Senate and people, and obliged the Senate to go through the form of absolutely forcing them upon him. For he was sensible that mankind is governed by names, nor was he deceived in his expectation. It says here, brothers and sisters, that the Senate and people would submit to slavery, provided they were respectfully assured that they still enjoyed their ancient freedom. He therefore wished to deceive the people by an image of civil liberty, and the armies by an image of civil government. It says, in this way, he finally merged in himself the prerogatives of all the regular officers of the state, tribune, consul, prince of the senate, proconsul, imperator, censor, pontifex, Maximus, with all the titles and dignities which had been given by the Senate to him as before to Caesar. In short, he himself became virtually the state. His will was absolute. Having thus drawn to himself the functions of the Senate and the magistrate and the framing of the laws, in which he was thwarted by no man, the title of father of his country meant much more than ever it had before. The state was the common parent of the people, the state being now merged in one man. When that man became the father of his country, he likewise became the father of the people. And the system by which every citizen shared in the government being thrown aside, all men regarded the orders of the prince as the only rule of conduct and obedience. Nor was this so merely in civic things, it was equally so in religious affairs. In fact, there was in the Roman system no such distinction known as civil and religious. The state was divine, therefore that which was civil was in itself religious. You see, brothers and sisters, that is the description when the king of the first countenance stand up, had been established in 27 BC according to the Shepherd's Rod, 2SR, page 126 and 127. And that's why I would like to invite all the Bidian brothers and sisters to study closely. Would you think it is not the fulfillment of that as the antitype, brothers and sisters? According to track number 14, that history repeats of itself. In track number 14, page 6, it says, all of these counterparts then are but another scriptural intimation and confirmation of the age-old truth that history repeats itself and on a much broader scale than in the original. That such monosectarian system, brothers and sisters, had been introduced by Satan in 1888, but it was failed because antitypical Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were there, and that is Alonzo Jones, Wagoner, and Sister White. They were still there, brothers and sisters. And since it was already portrayed in the Bible that only half of that ecclesiastical, which is the monosectarian system that had been wounded by Martin Luther, and the other half had been wounded in 1888. Therefore, the system that Satan will introduce is no longer a monosectarian. It is a multi-sectarian system, represented by the 6 uninjured heads. Now, why is it that the 6 heads of the leopard-like beast, it was not injured? First of all, the answer is that because Satan already recognized the fact that as long as there is an inspired servant of God in the place by which he wished to establish that scheme, there is no possibility. It was already proven in the past. So when the devil noticed that God raised up a divinely called movement in 1929, then the devil did not waste his time by introducing such system by which he knoweth that it will never be accomplished because there is still a divinely called movement, brothers and sisters, in the United States of America. Now, what the devil did, remember, brothers and sisters, what is the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism? I think it is easy to understand. A monosectarian. What is a monosectarian? Represented by Catholicism. All the people must submit whatever the doctrines that had been interpreted by the Vatican City, by the Pope, brothers and sisters, all of them must submit. And that is the system of Catholicism or the papacy. But how about Protestantism? Now, I would like to read the reading here in answerer number 3, page 29. It says, the questioner's difficulty stems from the hard fact that the Protestant world has long held the concept that God does not in this age employ an inspired mouthpiece to interpret the scriptures and to declare His will, but invest and lead each Christian individually. This theory, however, is universally exploded when viewed in the light of the fact that those individuals claiming to be personally led of God disagree among themselves just as much as the various sects disagree one with another. Now, in this scheme, in this system, the devil noticed that it is very successful and unnoticed. And that is the reason that the 6 heads are uninjured. What is the representation of the 6 heads? Now, I think there are many passages in the writings of B.T. Hotep. First, I would like to read 1 SR. On page 220, it says, these 6 great reformers on the Protestant side established the 6 great denominations, represented by the 6 heads. And the Catholic Church, the mother Protestantism, the 7th, thus including all Christendom in her polluted state. What is the 6 heads of the leopard-like beast? They are represented by the Protestants. But it says Christendom in her polluted state. 1 SR page 220. And that 6 are uninjured, brothers and sisters. And for sure, brothers and sisters, that system had not been introduced by Satan not until the wounded head of the leopard-like beast was healed. When does the healing process of the wounded head of the nondescript beast began? It was in 1870 or 1871. Why? In spite of the fact that there is still a divinely called movement in the United States of America, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Because according to 1 SR 216, that if God's people refuse to accept new light, then the wound would be healed, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read again here in 1 SR page 216. It says, or refuse new light, the wound would be healed, and the world would wander after the beast, apostasy. And it was in 1870 that the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that divinely called movement, brothers and sisters, refused new light. And that is the reason in answerer number 1, page 93. It says, as early as 1871, the cessation of that light had been pronounced by the prophet. And then the healing process began because only new light can keep, brothers and sisters, that deadly wound continually inflicted. When Martin Luther died, then that movement no longer susceptible to the new light. God raised up another movement, the Presbyterian. Then we have Methodist, Baptist, the Millerites movement. But in 1870, when that divinely called movement, brothers and sisters, no longer susceptible to accept new light, God did not raise up another movement. Because, I would like to repeat again, God works according to the words that He has already given to His servants, the prophets. God, or in other words, God already informed the people what He will do. And that is already recorded in the Bible. Or in other words, the healing of the wound of the nondescript beast, brothers and sisters, indicates that there was a period of time that God did not raise up a divinely called movement. Because if God would raise up a divinely called movement, the same in the statement in 2SR page 97, it says that in 1844, when the pronouncement, the fall of Babylon is made, supposed to be at that time, the wound would have been healed. But God raised up. It says, had God did not raise up another Protestant movement, 2SR page 97, the wound would have been healed at that time. In 1SR 217, supposed to be in 1844, because the Lutherans, Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, and the First-day Adventists, these divinely called movements are no longer susceptible to accept new light, but God raised up the Seventh-day Adventist Church and God deposited new light, the sanctuary doctrine, utters the impossibility of such wound to be healed. Therefore, to repeat again, the pre-11th hour movement, which is the This Day organization, that had been raised by God in 1930, it was raised by God after the deadly one was healed. What deadly one? The deadly one on the little hornhead of the nondescript beast. It is only a mirror. It is only a shadow so that we could be able to understand the last and the final movement that God would raise must be after the deadly one of the leopard-like beast was healed. And we will gradually discuss that subject, brothers and sisters, and very carefully and honestly and sincerely and seriously. We need to pray to God that God would help us to understand this very important subject. We will continue this subject tomorrow, brothers and sisters, and hoping that God would help us and God would bless us. We love you, brothers and sisters. The only reason that we broadcast this message because we feel that it is our duty to proclaim this message, brothers and sisters. That is the only reason. And we love all the brethren, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers. Soon, very soon, brothers and sisters, we will be going home. The kingdom is no longer far distant. And hoping, I would like to read this reading in 1SR on page 30. It says here, brothers and sisters, may God lift us from the low spiritual level. 1SR page 30. May God lift us from the low spiritual level into which we have fallen and save us from this Laodicean lukewarm condition. May we, as wise Nineveh of old, defeat the prophecy that heaven may rejoice. Or in other words, if possible, that statement is pointing to the possibility that we will try our best that if possible, not even one Shepherd's Rod believers will lose out, brothers and sisters. If possible, all of us together, hand in hand, we will stand on Mount Zion with the Lamb. Let us help each other and let us pray for each other, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, this revelation in the Bible or from prophecy is not against us. I remember the statement in 1SR. It says here, I love so much this reading and let's ponder deeply. The prophet says here, brothers and sisters, that I would like to read 150 in 1SR. A Redeemer promised to a penitent people. And I would like to read, it says, instead of applying it to other people and times, and thereby diverting the instruction intended for the church. So instead of applying to other people, then let us apply it unto us so that we will be benefited God's intention into our lives. I know, brothers and sisters, me of myself, I know that I am a sinful human being. I am, of all the sinners, I am the chief sinner, brothers and sisters. But the reason that I broadcast this message, it is not because, brothers and sisters, that I would like to read that reading in 1 TG. In 1 TG number 4, it says here in 1 TG number 4, page 20, so looking at it from this angle, we were not much better than the best of the Laodiceans. What makes the difference between us and them is that the light has illuminated our path, but it has not as yet reached them. The credit then for what advancement we may have made in this revival and reformation effort is not ours, but God's. 1TG number 4, page 20. So hoping, brothers and sisters, that all of us will sit down together and study closely the prophecies that are soon to be fulfilled, brothers and sisters. And I would like to say these things. Year 2021 and 2022 is very critical, brothers and sisters. Very critical. Do not wait. That statement in volume 9, page 11, saying the final movements will be rapid ones. And a statement in TM 116 saying that the prophecy will be fulfilled in quick succession. Because there might be possibility that when that predicted event will be fulfilled, brothers and sisters, will be get out of avalanche. According to 1TG number 47, page 14, brothers and sisters, it says that, but the time is soon coming. But the time is soon coming in which we will dig as fast and as hard for it as we would to get out from under an avalanche. Those who have but little faith in the Word of God, though the study will not do them much good. Now is the time to start cultivating the faith we need to have then. 1TG number 47, page 14. You see, brothers and sisters, it says right now we may not appreciate this study as we ought to, but the time is soon coming in which we will dig as fast and as hard for it as we would get out from under an avalanche. And those who have but a little faith in the Word of God, though, the study will not do them much good. Now is the time to start cultivating the faith we need to have then. So brothers and sisters, to repeat again, we will try our best that we could be able to finish this very important subject entitled, Where is the Hope of the World? And hoping that you have been benefited with this study. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful